So welcome everyone to the Co-Creators Convergence Thursday Creator Convos. And we have a very, very special evening. I guess I'm just going to say I'm a fan. I'm a fan of both of these people, Jennifer Evanko, and she's going to be our host tonight. And she's bringing Stephen Ross. And you'll learn more about Jennifer and Stephen in just a little bit. My name is Noelle Marshall, and together with my husband, Bob Warner, we call ourselves Light Partners. We don't call ourselves light workers because we don't like to work. So that's the inside story. So
welcome all.
Welcome all. And we also are the co-founders of the Co-Creators Convergence. And a lot of you here tonight perhaps don't know about what the Co-Creators Convergence is. So I'm going to play a very short video just to clue you in, and you're welcome to join. We have no structure. We just invite people in, we do things together, and all are welcome. So welcome again. That's a little bit about the Co-Creators Convergence. And right now I want to tell you a little bit about our host, Jennifer Evanko. She is a soul mentor, mystic explorer, and transformational guide who spent 35 years pursuing her passion for personal growth and transformation. Her personal quest has taken her around the world to ancient sacred sites, renowned mystery schools, and transformational teaching centers studying metaphysics, meditation, integrative medicine, and mysteries of consciousness. She spent 4 years traveling with and being personally mentored by one of the greatest pioneers of the human potential movement, Dr. Jean Houston. So Jennifer, I welcome you, and I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our guest tonight. And I understand you're going to be leading us in a centering meditation. So thank you and welcome to all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Noelle and Bob and Co-Creators Convergence. I really am inspired by the work that you both do and this group does. And thank you for allowing us to come and play tonight. Before we begin, I'd like to do a quick centering meditation. We're going to do a little bit of breath work, and this should be just about 2 minutes long. So if you want to sit back and get comfortable and close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, let's bring your awareness to your breath as you breathe in and out. Not changing your breath, just notice how you breathe in and out. Now let's deepen just a little, noticing your chest rise and fall with each breath. And now let's deepen into those long, slow belly breaths in through the nose. Hold, out through the mouth. Hold, and continue like this. Each breath in, imagine breathing in a sky blue color, a sky blue energy. And each breath out, bringing you a little deeper and into that peace and stillness. And as you continue this deep breathing just a little longer, imagine you can sense everyone around you in this group as if you're in a circle, all breathing together. A beautiful breath in and out. I invite you to imagine that you can actually hold hands around this circle. Really get a sense of holding someone's hand on your right and on your left, and all the people around the circle. Now, as you breathe, imagine breathing in through your right hand, that sky blue color, flowing it through your heart, out the left hand, and around the circle. With your awareness and your breath, moving that energy, that sky blue energy around the circle. Weaving this group into a conscious collective. Let's add a little laughter, a little joy. Imagining from your heart anything that brings you great joy. The face of a loved one, a pet, a funny thing that happened to you today. And let that flow with the energy as you breathe. Coming back to you even more joy. Very nice. You may begin to notice a little warmth and tingling in your hands as we move this energy. Nice, okay. Releasing the hands, continuing with your eyes closed and the breath just a moment longer. Feeling that peace and stillness of this group and that high frequency, the love that fills this circle. And I invite you to reflect on this beautiful soul question, just asking it without knowing any answers. Who am I? Ask yourself, who am I? Continue breathing and listen. Take another deep breath in and release. Releasing the question, any answers that may have come, allowing the universe to sort out the details as you come back into your body and into this moment. And when you're ready, slowly opening your eyes. Very nice. Welcome back. So I'm very excited today to be with you, with all of you, and to be with Stephen. I want to express my desire here, my intention, that this is a time for us to be in a fun discussion, a conversation, but that it inspires each of us to our best, to our highest, to our potentials, to step up to that mythic life that's inside of us waiting to arrive or to be lived. I'm very excited about Stephen, who is an author, a rare book collector, a philosopher, researcher, and international lecturer. Steve is a guardian and co-founder of a nonprofit World Research Foundation, which houses a phenomenal library of books, the oldest dating back to 1492. He's also an author himself of a number of books, including A Grand Design of Dreams, Contemplating Divine Revelation, and Nothing Happened, But You Can Make It Happen, an exploration into better solutions for our healthcare and why these solutions have been excluded from common medical practices. As you'll learn today, Stephen Ross's life has been full of synchronicities and events and magic. And we're going to understand what magic is. So welcome, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm glad to be with you. And I want to not only thank you, but also Noelle and Bob for inviting me to this forum to be sharing.
Beautiful. So we're going to start out today with a conversation that we'll have, that we're just going to open up a number of topics, and then we'll open up to questions. I encourage everybody, if you have questions as we go, to start typing them in the chat. And we want this to be a very open conversation.
Yes.
So wonderful. And thank you. I see a lot of friends here, new friends and old ones. Stephen, so we spoke before on another show, and we started off with the thought of what it takes to be a explorer of consciousness. And it begins with that curious mind. And I look behind you at all these books. Can you tell us about your start?
Well, I had two streams that have really flowed through my life. One, alternative or complementary medicine, and the other is the spiritual or esoteric field. But in the physical, I was on athletic scholarship at my university, Cal State Northridge in LA, and a gardener had left a sprinkler head in our warm-up track. And I didn't notice it until the last second. I ran 100 meters. I was going to be coming down with my left foot, and I saw the sprinkler head, and I tried to avoid it by extending my stride. And I really hurt my knee badly, was sent to the sports physician for the Rams, Dodgers, and LA Lakers, who said I'd either have to have surgery or I couldn't compete. I was sent for a second opinion to Ducky Drake at UCLA, and this is so long ago that Kareem Jabbar, the basketball player, was playing college ball. But even Ducky Drake said, you're going to have surgery. Well, I was very dejected. I went back to my trainer's room, and there was a Popular Mechanics magazine. Really has nothing to do with medicine, but I read about a technique from Russia. And I was so excited. I called up Dr. Kurlin, the sports physician, and said, what do you think, would this work? And his response, and this was 1968, was, that is holistic garbage. It will never work. It's nonsense. But I decided to try it myself, missed 4 weeks of training, and that year finished 5th in the United States, small college, for my events. It planted a seed, Jennifer. Why did these experts say something was nonsense and crazy, and yet it worked? And I wondered what other things exist in this world that we are not told about, and thus began my journey in alternative medicine. But it was 4 years later when I came across a Native American Indian who told me all my future guidance would come in my dreams. And I remember thinking how silly dreams, they didn't make sense to me. But I was so excited to have my first dream that I went 1 week without sleeping, because every night I was going, okay, I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to get all this wisdom. And it didn't happen until I was so tired. I went to bed and I did have a dream. And and I don't know if we have enough time to really share that dream or not, but I followed through with something on the dream. After that, I had 5 and 6 dreams a night for the next 3 months on every phase of my personality, likes, dislikes. And then I began getting telephone numbers in my dream. I would keep a yellow writing pad and never open my eyes, but record the dream, go back to sleep, write again. With the telephone numbers, I was just 24 years old and I didn't know what to do, but I called up and a voice would say, Stephen, we're waiting for you. And we want you to come out. We have things for you to caretake. And so if we met in the library, it was not in the background, maybe some of your listeners would think, oh, it's an interesting, but a lot of this was amassed through information given to me in dreams and visions.
That's a long way from the track, running track and
It is so opposite. And my father, who worked at Lockheed Aircraft, everything with him was fact, fact, fact. And I remember relating some dreams to my parents, and my father was dumbfounded because some of my dreams were prognosticating the future, which came true, and he couldn't believe it.
You know, one of the things that I've listened to, some of you, you've been on a number of shows with Guy and different interviews, and with my friend Sandy Sedgbeer. But one of the things you talk about is the fact, the knowledge versus wisdom. You have so much facts and information behind you, but what's the difference between this wisdom?
And thank you so much for asking that, because to me, the knowledge is book learning. It is maybe the mores of the society somebody's in. It is information that's been passed down. And I like to say that is a relative truth. It can be a relative truth because you can go one city over, one state over, one country, and maybe there's an offshoot that's similar, but maybe there's something completely opposite. For me, an absolute truth holds water all the time and in all circumstances. Otherwise, it is just a relative truth. And when we come to knowledge and wisdom, for me, I will just say, and this is only my way, I am not casting any doubt on others. I have never joined any groups or organizations. I have trusted what has come through me from within me, from the spirits around me, to be my guiding mechanism. And that wisdom for me has been things that I have directly experienced. Now, sometimes people will read something and they're just going to believe it automatically, and that's fine. But a lot of times that does not follow through in other instances. So for me, wisdom is getting closer to an absolute knowledge. And by the way, a book can be very accurate. However, it is really somebody's opinion. And my goal in this sharing with you is to have your audience trust themselves, to trust themselves what comes through. And our other element you and I had talked about was for everyone to think, when is enough enough, and what will bring joy to an individual?
And I love that topic. When is enough enough? I'm thinking about that guiding mechanism you were talking about. And in your own life, you talk about this sprinkler head, that appeared, and then you had this magazine that you opened up and there was some wisdom for you. Now, you wouldn't think wisdom in a popular mechanics, but that was your access point.
Absolutely. And certainly you don't think of health techniques coming from Popular Mechanics magazine. But I find it very fascinating that because those experts, and by the way, Dr. Curlin was a sports physician for not only the Rams, Dodgers, and Lakers, but Curlin Job, they did surgeries for almost all athletic teams in the 60s, that they said something was nonsense, the top experts, but it worked for me. That little impetus has driven me my entire life to find out what more is possible, what other things work, and to question and evaluate things on my own. And again, we're going back to trust. I can tell you some instances where people have told me, one woman who was 88 had been given a lot of pills to take for a problem, and she kept finding herself being more ill. So, and I'm not advocating this, but she flushed everything down the toilet. 1 month later, she goes back to her doctor, and the doctor says, wow, everything is great. You're looking great. The tests have all come back positive. She didn't have the guts to say that she didn't use anything. But my point here is to question. There's nothing the matter with questioning. There is nothing the matter with asking for a full explanation of anything you might be doing. That goes back to, why shouldn't we believe ourselves?
You know, and I think you hit on that important part again, is that question. I think once we start questions and then we stick to finding the answer, and it will come in many different ways, no?
Absolutely. And it's interesting, one of the old philosophers gave the keys for manifestation on this earth plane. He was the great alchemist Paracelsus in the 1500s. He said the secret is imagination, faith, and will. Imagination, you picture what you want to accomplish, you know it's going to happen, but I interjected this for the will part, the will to stay the course, to allow things to manifest. And this is why people, the majority of people, do not have things manifest on this earth plane. We're like the fast food time now. I want it right now. It's got to happen, instead of just staying the course. And when you realize that we are creators, and if you hold that thought, if you hold that picture, it will manifest. It must manifest. But most people, again, just don't give it the time, Jennifer, to really come from the amorphic or thought sphere down to our materiality.
Imagine if you practice, if you hold an intention to manifest and you wait for it to come around to finally manifest, or work, co-create with the source, that it eventually gets faster. I imagine it's not this fast food lifestyle that we live here. It is more of exercising and strengthening that ability.
And that is so right, because when somebody gets into that state of awareness, and I'm not going to use higher or lower, that someone's evolved, when you're in that state of awareness, these aspects will manifest instantaneously. The same way is in the health field, when somebody's had a health problem and they have an instantaneous remission of tumors that are very large. Instantaneous, that word means instantly. So when one gets in the flow, and I believe this goes back, people often ask me, you're lucky, there must be something else, it's because of all your past lives, perhaps. But here's what I would say, like Nike, I just did it. Based on my first dream, which was not complimentary to me, I followed through with it. I wanted to become a better person. And because of that, more dreams came, more magical things have happened throughout my life. And it's beautiful. It just makes life even more beautiful when you realize that it isn't just our physical conveyance that we're slogging around and we have ups and downs. We have a greater inner self. we have an overself, an oversoul. We have unbelievable spiritual help around. Everybody has these guides, and if you want to call them angels or spirits, they're there. And the more you tune in and realize they're there, you will realize you're not alone.
When you tap into that wisdom, you do that through establishing your own mechanism, like you mentioned. You do it through dreams, correct?
It started with dreams, and then there reached a point where I would just hear the voices I need to hear. Now, some might have me locked up because I hear voices, but thankfully your audience will not think about tar and feathering me. They will go, yes, those voices. No, the voices come, the information is passed through very, very quickly. And it's like working any other muscle. Really, what I like to say is, when you make a commitment to your dreamer, this aspect that puts these dream scenarios in place for you, things will become faster and faster. With all the dreams, and I've kept my dream journals since 1983, but I once had a dream where I was in this room and I was laying back in like a dentist chair, and the people around me, the spirits, were going, all right, what sequence of dreams? Let's see, what sequence of dreams should we give Steve? And then I had every one of those dreams that night. So I'm not saying anything. And by the way, to your audience, I'm not saying anything is the gospel. It may just be my relative truth. So I just want everyone to know, I am never so dogmatic that this is the way you must do, nor must you have a library behind you to be a wise person. It just means, and maybe I've lost a lot of hair from reading, I don't know, trying to jam things in. So don't just go by what other people appear to use to reach enlightenment. Hey, transcendentalists were hugging trees and having cosmic consciousness. Belief systems are what slow people down here, because it comes into your consciousness. This is your belief, and guess what? It probably will manifest. So if somebody believes you must go to the Himalayas, meet with the yogis, do 10 years of yogic exercises to reach enlightenment, you will. There's absolutely no question. But the transcendentalists were hugging trees. Jacob Boehme in the 1600s saw a reflection off of a pewter dish and had cosmic consciousness. So, belief system, you can believe what you want to believe. I tend to like the idea that we have instantaneous access to all wisdom. And if someone we admire or we're idolizing too much, think of it like this. They don't have access to any more than you and I do. They may be a little bit more aware, but don't ever make the mistake that they're going to give you something. Everything, as Plato said, in living is awakening what we already know. And that is the aspect I like. My job is to awaken. I can't give anybody anything. And that's why I don't charge for any healing work or basically lectures, because for me personally, I just don't agree with that.
See, I think the journey now is about finding what your path is, our own path is to awakening, what works and what is our relative truth, as you say.
And it's going to be different for everybody. This is why I classify myself as a bus stop bench. Somebody passes me on their bus route. We sit in our little bus stop, we talk, then they're going to continue on their route. I'm going to continue on my route. I don't expect them. My job is to illuminate the bench so somebody will really see what they are carrying in their luggage on their journey.
I love that. Illuminate the bench.
Illuminate. We're sitting there. and they're going to go their own way. Hey, my way has been rock and roll oldies from the 60s. I haven't got into the new age music. I haven't even caught up with the 90s. So if somebody was going to follow my way, it might be difficult to listen to the old rock and roll music. So it's amazing, Jennifer, when you talk with people, there's going to be 7 billion journeys when people are left on their own. If they join a group, they're going to go, well, we did this together. But by and large, we're all individual, which should make everyone in your audience go, I'm a special person. I really am. My way is unique. That's what I want to keep impressing during our sharing. And you and I have talked off Zoom before about this lack of trust people. And I'm going to say part of it is coming from the metaphysical community. The metaphysical community, people who are not, I think, of high ethics, where you're taking 1 million courses and you got to do exactly how I did it. That's nonsense. No two people are so exact like that, that it's going to work.
And
in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, we to find our unique gift so we can come together and weave that beautiful tapestry instead of just a single mountain. Yeah, you blow me away. Every time I'm with you, it's like, oh, so much information and wisdom, sharing it in this energy that we create, this field we create together with this whole group. It's all accessible to each of us. And I like to remind people that all of us are so much more than we dare to dream. And it's just a matter of dreaming.
And people hear my story because I've been fortunate to have been on some radio and TV shows, and I get invited back. But that doesn't mean that people in your audience don't have mind-boggling, that's probably a term from the 60s, mind-boggling experiences themselves. Because so often I'll be with a group of people and somebody will say, well, this happened and that happened and I did this. And I'm going, do you talk with other people? Do you need to discuss something yourself of your own experience? So an average person believes it because people look at me a little bit differently. In real life, I'm a triple Aquarius. I'm silly, I'm goofy, I love to have fun, but people think, oh my gosh, he's very studious and he's got books behind him, and he must have been intensely in meditation because he can do these materializations and other things. People get that in their mind because that's part of the programming. Part of the programming is, hey, the only way you can achieve this is to be very saintly. And for some people, it's if you don't have Eastern philosophy, it's not going to happen for you. Well, every one of these things are belief systems. It can happen like this. I believe we're coming into the age now, Jennifer, where the veil is thinner between our physical sphere and the spiritual, which means with that veil thinner, information is going to be coming. So it's somebody's intent and desire that is going to help them manifest what they want to achieve.
Yes, yes. Before we go to questions, I just want to go into, I know there's a lot of people interested in Manly P. Hall and that story of how you met, and I can't imagine spending time in his library, what that was like.
Well, very early, I'm thinking back, I was 24 years old. I was in the LA area and somebody said, do you know who Manly Hall is? And I said, I don't have any idea. But I found out he was lecturing at a place in Los Feliz. His organization is the Philosophical Research Society. So I go down there on a Friday and there was about 100 people in a room. And there was a blackboard on the front. And there were people I would later find out had been following Manly Hall for anywhere from 35 to 50 years. Now, every Sunday he would lecture for $1 and they would write points, 6 points on the blackboard. And then the audience would discuss it the next Friday. Well, I don't know the people. I did what most seekers do who have no idea where they're going. I sat so far in the back that my back was against. Somebody asked the question of the moderators in the front, what does point number 4 mean? And Pearl Thomas, one of the moderators, and I would find out was his head librarian, points her finger to the audience. Everybody's moving their head, and she's pointing to me. And the next thing I knew, everybody was looking to me. Apparently, I spoke, I said some things, I said what number 4 was, and after it was over, Pearl Thomas comes to me and she goes, "How long have you been studying Manly Hall?" I said, I've never seen it. How many books have you read? I have never read a book. So she was so enamored. She said, "Young man," and I was really young then, "please come to the library tomorrow." So Saturday I'm there. Oh my God, 70,000 books all behind glass, locked. To talk with the librarian. That night I had a dream. And the next Monday, I handed it to Pearl Thomas, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I've got to give this to Mr. Hall." Now, Manly Hall was in such a state that you really couldn't get in and see him. People were calling the place, "Hi, this is Plato. I'm Jesus. I'd like to have a meeting." Manly Hall. So you couldn't see him, but he called me to his home. And he said, "Who are you?" I just said, "I'm a student." And he said, "What do you want of me?" My spirit said, "I want to go into your personal private vault and I want to Xerox materials." Now, he said, okay. And the reason he did was my dream talked about how he wanted to build the Philosophical Research Society in 1928. That was his idea, but he didn't have enough money. And he built it a little different in 33, but he knew I was born in 49. I wouldn't know what his idea was. That was a calling card from spirit, from whoever was working. I joke, his people called my people. And I get in and I Xerox all these alchemical books, which are sitting out of his vault right there. And in it was a notebook that said, "Material arriving too late to be included in the secret teaching of all ages." Now, the secret teaching of all ages is this classic, unbelievable masterpiece book. And I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, these materials were not included. Now, Manly Hall had an agreement. He said, "Steve, please don't republish anything alchemical or what's in the vault until I die, because the PRS might republish it to fund it." Well, I waited 40 some years, and that's when I republished the unpublished writings. But how did it come about? Came about purely by spirit. Spirit told me what to say in the room. Spirit gave me that dream. Spirit had me. Who would have the guts to say, "I want to go into your private vault"? I mean, come on. It was, and somehow he ends up saying yes. I'm a firm believer. All of us have these guide mechanisms. All of us have incredible spiritual, what do you call them? Essences, light around us. And you said it earlier, the more you work with things, the more you put in the effort, things will happen. And they do happen. And it started for me at 23. I'm going to be 73 in January. And let's call it magic. I love that word. The magic has never stopped. It's still there for the young of heart. You don't have to have hair. You just need to be young of heart, and it's going to happen.
And I love you bring up magic. I heard you explain what magic isn't really compared to what we think of magic.
Yes, I mean, in the ancient days, magic was somebody who was thoroughly familiar with the aspects of nature and its working. But over time, it became the negative, the black side, and that's not what the original intent was. It's the same thing with imagination. Imagination was considered the greatest gifts of God to human beings. This is what the the ancients believed. Later, imagination turned into fantasy. Oh, you're just imagining it. It's not true. But the ancients had imagination as the gift, and they had fantasy as something completely different that somebody was making up. So again, when we go to Paracelsus, he said the key to all magical acts, everything that was done by the disciples and throughout time, is imagination, faith, and will. Imagine what you want to accomplish, know that it will manifest, and stay the course. But if you don't imagine clearly, why would anybody assume it's going to manifest when we jump from 1 minute to another? I'd like this to happen. And then 2 minutes later, we're thinking, yes, if I could have this, and let's add that. So the universe is going, oh, 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 oh.
Exactly. You know, a lot of in the human potential work that I do, and we do a lot of deep imagination that jumps into that imaginal. And I was taught by Jean Houston a lot about the Renaissance and of these thinkers like Leonardo da Vinci or some of these other great people that thought beyond their time. It's because they stepped into that imaginal, that place beyond that is so powerful, where the new fresh ideas come in, the new inspirations.
And in the days of Paracelsus, he liked the magic term that was in imagination. There is a magic there. And the ancients knew a lot more. Just because they didn't have fast cars and computers and all little toys we have does not mean that they didn't have great wisdom. Some of this wisdom has stayed throughout time. You know, there's other things people say that it's wisdom. We have our fads here. They're here, Jennifer, and they're gone. They don't withstand time. But true wisdom is there forever. It is there. It can be overlooked. It can be covered up. It may be buried, but it is there. It is always so close. Here, it's the flow. It's the flows and fonts coming from the original creation that I like to share. The healing stream that never stops, that's here, and other founts of great wisdom are there. And every one of us can tune in. We can resonate. We can get to that vibration where we become one, like tuning forks. And guess what? You don't need expensive courses. You don't need to go crazy. You don't need fancy terms or words to do healing. This is the only way you can heal. You got to look over the person who's ill. You have to do this and you have to do that. I'm just going to tell people that's going to work if you wanted to, but that's not necessary. It is a desire and intent added with love, and that will do everything. You can cut out the 20 minutes preparation before and all the thingamajiggies people do. Intent, desire, and love. Everybody has that.
No, and I would venture to add one more thing to that, and that's that detachment, that ability to just be in that space. And I guess that's the love, actually, because you love what is.
Well, and I agree with that, because my spirits told me a long time ago that we would have the ability to materialize things, but the secret was not to get attached to the outcome. And it's exactly what you're saying, to kind of stand off. Now, I am not responsible in the past whether somebody healed or not, because somebody can block out energy, the conduit that we are, from happening. So I again, I'm a firm believer that detachment, intent, desire, and love, and you can accomplish anything that you desire. Anything is possible.
Beautiful. I see that we're getting a number of questions here. I don't know if Noelle, if you'd like to ask any of these questions.
Sure. I'm going to back up just a little bit to the early part of your story. And someone wanted to know how you healed your knee.
It was fascinating because in the popular mechanics, they spoke about the Russians were using and working with freezing and cold. Now, whether I read it right or not, what I did was I iced up that knee, I let it thaw. I iced up that knee, I let it thaw. And being I was 23 years old, 18 years old, and a little crazy, I did that 20 hours a day, just over and over. But here's the other thing. All the time I was doing it, I visualized myself running my 100-meter race and breasting the tape. 100 meters first, 100 meters first. So, Noelle, here's the question. Was it the ice and thawing? Was it me going over and over, imagining, visualizing, because I was frigging relentless. It was not from ego. I crossed the tape. I crossed the tape. And from something that needed surgery, for me to only miss 4 weeks, I anchored our 400 relay team. I ran 100 meters and 200 meters. You cannot fake a knee injury. You just can't even run and get out of the blocks. So I've thought about this over time. If we had this conversation 20 years ago, I would say it was the hot and cold. But now I would say, was it not what I wanted so badly?
Yeah.
And there was never, I think I was going to win. I could feel the tape. And by the way, this was in 1969. So it was way before all these people with courses and visualization. And I, of course, had never read anything up to that time. I hadn't even gone into esoteric metaphysics until 1973. I was just doing it. So that was the answer. I can't tell that person exactly which one worked.
You know, Steve, when you talk about that, I think when we practice something or when we re-engage, we train our mind to believe it, and then we viscerally believe it. That's how we manifest it.
Yes, and I think there is plenty of studies that showed they took people on a basketball court and had one group practice physically with the ball. They had another group just imagine they were shooting baskets. They didn't even touch the ball. They never made a shot, and yet they had the same results.
Well, I think Tiger Woods would say it was the latter conclusion that you came to. That was the imagining, the visioning. You know, that's what he said his secret was, that he just always saw the ball going exactly where he wanted it to. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of people, when they get in that zone, they call it. You know,
and I'd like to add one little caveat, Noel, because this is really good. When Tiger was really in the throes, he was hotter than a firecracker. I remember them interviewing 3 or 4 of Ernie Els, all the good ones. You know what they said? We're going to be playing for second. They were visualizing and talking about, we can't beat this guy. We're going to finish second. We're playing for second. Look what they had in their mind.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. It's
right.
The same type of thing. And
they already lost.
They had already lost. That is true. So he's thinking one way, and they're all going, okay, we're just playing for a second.
Wow.
Well, once the mystique is broken in sports, I have sports background in many sports. Once you let another team think that they could play in the same game with you, you were in for a dogfight. But when you have it in your consciousness, we're just not going to get beat. Or the basketball players would say, Michael Jordan, oh my God, the basketball looked like it was a bathtub. There was no way I can miss that. I could just shoot it up there. But as soon as you start thinking, you go off, it bounces off the rim, you lose it.
Right. I only memorized one quote, Michael Beckwith. He says, my imagination is spirit's vehicle, and it creates mightily through me and as me.
There you go.
And I just love that quote. And, you know, what can we do? You know, uh, we do put on some seminars and symposiums and things, mostly about the environment. And at one point, we have people vision into the future. They're talking to their great, great, great grandchildren, and they're trying to describe what the world will look like at that time. And I'm always amazed that they're going like, well, now we get 80 miles to the gallon instead of 30. I mean, the way that they can imagine is so limited. It scares me.
But see, in that everybody is not exactly on the same page means that it's not going to manifest exactly. This is why when we say, do we need a whole group of people to change the world? Not necessarily. One person, a Gandhi, can win it for an entire country because he did not lose focus what he wanted to achieve, despite what everybody else said, what everybody else wanted. So if you got people who are resonating really close, it's got a better chance. But when we have a group, and even if we go, give peace a chance, okay, what does that really mean for every single person? What does peace mean? It's a word. What does joy mean? What does happiness mean? I think Jennifer and I were talking about even when we would ask, what will make you happy? I don't know how many people we have here, but I will venture to say, however many people you have, we would be lucky if we got 3 people or 2 people to say exactly what happiness is. And that's why we want to segue into when is enough enough? Because if you don't think you have enough, how could you ever be happy? You can never be happy because more, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not spiritual enough. I'm not aware enough. This has caused in our culture, even people in the esoteric metaphysical field, to not have things work out, because it's not about just saying a word. I'm happy. Really? Are you just saying it? Or is it something you're emanating? Is that vibration such that I am such a happy person that on my screen are Jennifer and Noel, that you're just happy just seeing me? Not me, but that idea that of happy. Somebody makes you feel it in your thymus. My gosh, you feel this vibration. This is what we don't have here. Our definitions are horrible. Here's America. Oh, Jennifer, Noel, I love you. And 2 minutes later, I love my Honda CRV. I mean, our definitions are not deep enough. And when I have been on the podium with people who are still pretty well known, and I'm going to tell you, they are not the same off the stage as everybody thinks they are on. People I like, oh my God, these people are so aware, they're so knowledgeable. They can't even do it in their own life. You know why? Because they fell into the trap of talking. In the Bible, there was this part where the disciples went out and they couldn't heal, and they come back to Jesus, and basically paraphrasing, he said, you were just saying the word without the energy behind it. Speakers would be even greater if they talk with everybody in the audience, if they look everybody in the eye instead of, it's an energy. And again, please excuse me, I don't ever mean to be critical of people. We're talking higher states. For me, somebody either has the goods or they don't. And when they do, people will feel it. And they'll feel it where they need to feel it. And it should not be in the head. It should not be listening and going, yeah, no. Here, that stays. That awakens people and they become active. Here, it's the head.
Some of the most enlightened people I've met or heard speak are the ones that come straight from that heart, that are so down to earth. You mentioned Manly Hall when you met him.
It was so funny because I was with him about 4 times. I was in his home and his wife, Marie, came in. Manly Hall had his feet up on a table, and she walks in, she goes, Manly, your shoes have a hole in the bottom. And he just calmly looked up and goes, they're still fitting on my feet. And it's great. He was a very down-to-earth individual who, by the way, spoke very little about phenomena. It was about how to live a more happy, joyous, and fulfilling life. Too many people are being attracted. Hey, do the Kundalini thing, raise it, you'll be able to do this and do that. And it's like the cart pulling the horses. You don't want to go just to the phenomena, because can people do phenomena? Absolutely. Phenomena is a natural part of our physical conveyances and who we are spiritually. But like anything else, you don't put a race car in the hands of a 5 or 6 year old. I think first, philosophy is very, very, very important as an underpinning. And guess what? The phenomena will come, because it must come as you increase your awareness. It's going to be natural and it's going to be there.
Thank you, Stephen. We do have a few more comments here, questions. So Pamela writes, I'm curious, do you have a particular spiritual practice that you follow every day?
I wish I had it here. My spiritual practice is 3 feet away. If I go over and get it, will I disrupt everything we're doing here?
Oh, no, that's fine.
Actually gives us a moment to look at that library.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not just a fake backdrop.
It's not.
Okay, I am back. So
Okay.
first thing I do is I get my Apple Watch and
6. Oh no. Good evening.
so I start my practice with something fun. I immediately get up and I'm thankful that I'm on this side of the ground, and I give thanks. Then what I do is Mickey in the morning goes, it's 5:30. Good morning, pal. So that's how I start my day. My wife's still asleep, so I start that. Then what I do is I go into a chair. I close my eyes. I do breathing very similar to what Jennifer beautifully led us through. And then I do no more than 10 minutes. And then I'm finished. I get up, and that is my spiritual practice. Now, what could we take from that? Well, joy, fun, laughter. I believe the spiritual world is one of beauty, love. They have great patience, and every good channel, when the spirits come through, will say the spirits admire all of us on this earth plane, that we had the guts to incarnate in a physical world like this. Think about that. They're not sitting critical of us or, well, you didn't. No, they admire us for putting ourselves through this. So my spiritual practice is, I hope somebody deducted this before I told them, my spiritual practice is not the 10 minutes and the meditation in the morning. It is all my waking day, bringing silliness and fun to every single person I meet, to talk with everybody. If I do a lecture, I don't use notes. I look at everyone. I look at the cameraman. I've had cameramen come up and say, oh my gosh, you looked at me. So why not? You're a person too. I don't care if you're behind the camera. It is what we're doing aside. What is the spiritual practice? It's your life. The spiritual practice is your life and what you're bringing. Do people feel better when they're around you? If they do, are we planting with each step? Are we planting swales or flowers?
Mm, beautiful. It's one of my favorite spiritual songs is Preach All Day, Say Few Words. Doesn't
Yes.
that kind of capture it?
Absolutely, for sure. Yes.
Yeah, so I love that. Well, we do have another comment here from Olivia. She said, thank you so much for the Steve. I loved your interview with Jen a few weeks ago too.
Oh,
Is it possible to purchase a copy of Manly Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages? You inspire me with your library and wisdom and how it came to you. Yes, trust our direct experience.
that is beautiful. What I have at my actual website, lesscomplicated.net, it's one word, lesscomplicated.net. I have the last second material, but the secret teachings, someone would have to really get from Amazon. Yes, that is the secret teachings. And this is just the last second. So these were not included, but Manly Hall wanted them to be included in his book. And actually in this book, Manly Hall stated how he wanted people to approach reading the secret teachings. And his organization never printed that. There's nothing written how Manly Hall wanted. So what he did was he did a series of about 14 lectures. And I just did it verbatim. I didn't comment on it. I just told the story of how I came upon it. I didn't edit. I didn't say, well, Manly Hall means this. First of all, for me to say, oh, I know what the guy meant. I just never do that. We have to take what people say based on where they were coming from. So secret teachings would be wherever you can get it, used bookstore, but nobody else is selling this unpublished pages except at my lesscomplicated.net.
Okay.
Is there a version of that, of his secret teachings that has the diagrams and the pictures?
Well, that's why I would somebody needs to make sure. There are so many knockoffs where they've left out the pictures. So one needs to really look. And I mean, some of the editions and what they're charging is expensive. So you want to make sure you're getting them, Jennifer, exactly the pictures and the diagram. It was amazing. He wrote the book at 23 years old. He was a beautiful man. I've met a lot of people around the world. He walked this talk. He was, there was just an aura around him.
I noticed a number of the people in the audience are familiar with Damanhur and the mystery schools in Damanhur. And I have to recommend this book highly, that it really, anybody, it opens up some of these things that you've probably heard of in all of your workshops and different, it's like
well, he wrote on so many different topics, and I was not there. He used to lecture every Sunday for 60 years for $1. And it comes out 25 single-spaced pages when it's transcribed out. And when I was there, and I actually spoke a couple times at his center, the people there told me one day he started to give a talk on a subject, and 5 minutes in, one of the staff realized it was not the advertised topic. So the person sheepishly walked onto the stage, whispered in Manly Hall's ear, quietly backed away. And Manly Hall goes, I understand today's topic is so-and-so. And then he gave a 2-hour lecture on the right topic. No notes, nothing. Just, when I talked to him, he said he saw a screen and he just would read and just channel. It was very remarkable. He's not the only remarkable person, but he was a very interesting man.
We have some more questions here. Jennifer, it's okay if I go ahead and
Please.
Okay. Lori would like to know, will a Grand Design of Dreams book be available on Kindle?
I actually have it as a PDF on my lesscomplicated.net, which will go right to your iPhone. So if somebody wants to download the PDF, I'm not sure, it's been so long since I started with Kindle, but I do have it as a PDF, which will download right to your iPhone or your computer. Yes.
You can import it to Kindle. I've done that.
From there. Oh, yeah, then that's
Yes,
great.
yeah, you can. Okay, we have another question from Jackie. Lori says, thanks. Jackie says, wow, this really resonates with me. Thank you for stating these concepts so eloquently. Can you talk a little more about tapping into streams like the healing stream?
Yes. Throughout time, many healers who have done more of the spiritual or even hands-on will say that they feel a stream or energy pattern that is around them when they are healing. This healing stream bathes the entire planet, could be the whole planetary system. It is a divine energy coming from basically the creator of the creation. And some people are able to deflect that stream to the person that they're working with. That is one thing that I have done in my healing work, is I ask that the highest and best that can manifest for our request are manifest. That does not mean they're supposed to be healed. Some people need to keep the difficulty they have. It is a challenge, it is an impetus, it forces directions. We deflect, or as a conduit, take this energy and project it to a person. It is their choice whether they're going to use it or not. But no, it is real, it exists. Some people say they see it as a blue sparkling light. When I've worked with people, I tell them to imagine a waterfall with all kinds of color lights coming over them. Different healers may describe it differently, but it is there. It exists. It is a healing stream. And you don't need a special education. You don't need to take courses. You're not going to find out the answer. I'm not going to give it to anybody. I am just letting everybody know that your intent and desire. And if you love the person, it was the great healer, J.R. Newton, who cured 250,000 people in the 1800s purely by love. His successes were testified by mayors, judges, lawyers, newspaper editors. He took people who were paralyzed for 15 or 20 years. He took people who were blind, and in 10 minutes, rectified 250,000 people. And here's what he said: as to the nature of healing, it is a demonstration of the power of love. I tell someone I love them, I show them I love them, and if they accept it, the disease must depart. And so J.R. Newton, his book is also on my website. It should inspire people. Now, somebody just sent a comment about Bruno Grunig, and Bruno Grunig was also an incredible healer, 30,000 people from his balcony, but these people tap into this healing stream, which goes through them like a conduit. So J.R. Newton was, I think, really unique, because when you read his story, it is phenomenal. And it was said that nobody could argue in his presence. Nobody could argue, because the love that emanated from him was so profound that people just couldn't see. This is the difference between a word. I love everybody as long as they agree with me. That's one way. The other way is more universal love. I am going to accept people, they're on their path. And by the way, an admonition, I made my agreement with Spirit. I cannot interfere with anybody's development or pathway unless I'm given permission. Now, they gave me permission when they tuned in to your show, and Jennifer, they're here. I'm gonna say what we say. But if I'm out, I'm just going to be a librarian. I'm going to just listen to a crowd of people. I am not going to try to sway anyone, because everybody's path is unique and beautiful. No matter what anybody in your audience is going through, it is unique. It was meant. And here's the interesting thing. We planned it ourselves. So every time we think, oh my God, how did this befall me? Remember, you either caused it from a poor decision, or you set it up in spirit before you came down. And I remember commenting very early to the spirits around me. I said, was I crazy to ask for this? And they go, Steve, it's not a matter of crazy. It is the pathway. This is the pathway you chose so that you could relate to everybody in the future. If people just thought that you were the seventh son of a seventh son, or you were a UFO came down and left you in a field, how could anybody relate? That is why I believe that average people should be telling their stories. You know, at these conferences, this is my opinion, the same speakers, I'm not saying they're not good, the same speakers, people line up and it's this guy and that one and blah, blah, blah. No. That's not fostering the change in our world. It's got to be something that we can relate to. Our neighbor, somebody else on here needs to get on here, and we need to hear the stories, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of healing, Flo did ask, how can I get a healing session with you? Is that something that you offer?
No, at this time, many years ago I did, but here's why I don't do that now. If I try to empower people, this is my goal, to empower people. I don't want to empower people to love me. I don't want to empower people to think that I was the one who did it for them. So I have not done it now for many years, because from a state of integrity, my own personal belief, integrity, in my opinion, is you do all your actions to what your beliefs are. You don't believe this, but do that. I'm here on Sunday, but I do this the rest of the week. I am here to empower everybody looking and hearing us, that you can do it on your own, that you have the ability to do it. So no, I really don't offer, other than I'm going to give a blessing to everybody when we end here, just putting it out in my segment or when I'm done. But no, I'm not doing any personal work.
Awesome. And when we get to that point where you give your blessing, I would invite everyone to turn on their video. Okay, now I have a question. I first ran across Manly P. Hall when I was visiting the Peace Pentagon, and the book there I saw was The Secret Destiny of America.
Yes.
What is the thesis of that? I mean, the person who had the book wouldn't let me have it, wouldn't let it to me.
Well,
but I've always, I don't know, been drawn to this guy, so that's why I got this book here. But
well, the essence is America is supposed to be the new Atlantis, the positive aspects of the highest state of awareness of society. The real question is where we are now, and have we really fulfilled the true destiny of our country, where in the years ago, if you had an idea for a company, you could just do it. And if you had a belief in anything is possible, it would be possible. But things creep in as society goes. for one reason or another, vested interest, greed, more regulations. The idea was to be moving the world to the highest state of what we were all capable of. And the ancients believed that America was the great and grand experiment. And it has been, and it still can be. So I'm not some doom and gloom person or negative, because there's things happening in our country here. However, in your individual sphere, you can do anything you want. You can create, you can manifest. I would tell people to reread the 6-volume set, Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, which was written by Baird Spalding. Now, a lot of people in the esoteric field read that many years ago. Purportedly, Baird Spalding took a group of people over to the Himalayas and met with these wise teachers who talked about, and he saw all the things they could do: levitate, bilocate, instant healing. I think people should reread that. And the debate was, did he really go? We don't see how he really ever went to India. We cannot find those people he met who were 300 years old. They don't get it. He was with them, but not in our dimension. But the truths that are within that book should invoke with us, wait a minute, we have the capability. It was Emerson that said, when I come across narrow viewpoints, I find narrow reading. In other words, if your exposure is just to this, you believe the whole world is this. Your whole world is the encyclopedia of the letter F. Your nose is against F. What about K? K, F, G, E. Oh, look at all this stuff in between. We want more exposure to what's possible, not less. More. What are we capable of? Let's hear the stories of people who transcend matter, people who have done things that are beyond the norm. Guess what? Few more people do it, it won't be beyond the norm anymore. It'll be what we can all do. That's what we want to be doing. We want to be dropped in the pool. Never stops. It goes out and out and out. I want to throw in this quote from Pythagoras, the great philosopher, 525 BC. When I come across those who I share with, I call them brother and sister. When I come across those who impart wisdom to me, I call them mother and father. And when I come across those which I must really share and help and support, I call them son and daughter. At any time, you're my mama, you're my daughter, you're my sister. He coined the word philosopher, and yet what he was saying was, from anybody at any time, you can find wisdom. So don't just figure, oh, I can't learn from this person. At any moment, you're my daddy, you're my son, you're my brother, you're my mother, you're my sister, your daughter. This keeps us open, that everywhere we can learn.
So beautiful, so beautiful. I have another question about Manly P. Hall. Now, you have described to us how you things came to you through dreams, telephone numbers, and just synchronicities.
Yeah.
Did he ever discuss how things came to him?
He never wrote a lot about himself purposely for the exact reason that I've been sharing. He didn't want people, even though they still did, to deify him, to think that he was different. But if you really read between the lines, you can see here was an individual who had a desire to not only learn, because his library, he said he acquired his library often where he wouldn't eat any substantial food for 10 days. He didn't have any money left. He bought books. He wanted to learn. He had a desire. So his was a combination. He didn't he certainly talks about the spiritual area, angelic, but he never really talked about himself purposely. And that's why one has to be careful. I had that fine line about how much do I share? And by sharing, if I get into certain areas, people are going to go, oh, okay, only he can do that. Okay, he's special. Okay, and that's not what we're looking. The idea is, and that's why I will tell people, I eat meat, I listen to rock and roll music, I love my relationship with my wife, I don't abstain, I'm not trying to be saintly, I'm trying to tell people, this is so easy. I hope I've got it across to your audience. It is so easy, this field, but people are making it hard so they can sell endless courses, and you need to learn this, and you need to learn that. And here's an important thing. Many years ago, I read a book by Charles Kellogg, who was called The Bird Singer. He lived in the 20s. He could duplicate any sound a bird could make perfectly. He was part of the Kellogg family. And one day he decided to do a demonstration where he could affect a flame, a fire, by different sounds. And so he went to KGO radio in San Francisco, and at exactly 9 o'clock, 26 miles away, was a fire station with a flame in a glass tube. And at 9 o'clock, as agreed before, he would utter a tune, and the flame would go up, 10 minutes later down, and then he would extinguish it. AP, UPI were there, and I have his book on my site too, because Charles Kellogg, it's amazing. Now, 1 week later, I come across a Laplander, which are the people in Scandinavia, and the woman from Finland showed me that she could affect fire. Now, I heard the bird whisperer, the tune that he used for the flame, and here's the lady from Finland affecting a flame. And then a week later, I read from the Sufis, the Rafai school, that the Sufis there could stand and affect fire, but they stopped it because the audience were fainting and getting heart attacks watching these people. Why am I sharing this? All three were using a different sound. Now, in our physical world, that's ridiculous. And it wasn't just higher notes. So the question is, was it the sound or was it their intent? Was it their belief system? Pele, help me, and you can walk across lava. My point here is, our world, your beliefs may be limiting you because you don't think this is possible. You don't think that's possible. But when a woman needs to lift a car off her husband's chest that he was working on, she lifts an unbelievable amount of weight. Why do people do extraordinary things under extraordinary conditions? Because it forces them. Get out of your routines. Don't take the safe way. Don't calculate risk and go, I've calculated, I'm going to do this every time. No, you're stifling your spirit. You're stifling your spirit.
Beautiful. Well, I think that's a perfect place for us to conclude the evening. Would you say, Jennifer, Stephen?
I have so much more I could ask him, though.
I know. I want to know what his joy protocol is.
Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse
I love the Mickey Mouse, how he taps his toe, I guess, for every second.
So, you know, have you seen it? Yeah. That's
no, exactly. I just saw it when you showed it to us.
Yeah, every second is that. And yeah. And it's just, you know, it reminds me to stay light, to stay fun. Because sometimes some of us in the field can get too dogmatic, too religious, too, okay, this is it. And I just remember that, yeah, Mickey keeps me honest. Mickey keeps me focused.
I'm going to ask everyone to go ahead and turn on your video. Bob, you may need to help me with this because
Sure.
it may not allow people to start the video. So let's go ahead and get everyone on here, as many as we can.
I'm not.
Okay.
There we go.
Never more people gathering here.
Looking good.
If you can't turn your video on, just put your name in there and I'll help you. Looking forward to this wonderful blessing. This has been a wonderful turnout and so many wonderful comments coming in here. And I'll just say while we're waiting for more people to turn on their video, if you want to save the chat, you go down to the bottom of the chat. If you're on your computer, there's 3 dots. You click that once and then it will say save chat. And it will make a text document in a Zoom folder in your documents folder. So that's kind of how that works. Okay, it says Debbie needs help. So let's.
Noelle, while you're doing that as well, I'd like to mention Steve has so much information that he shares on Gaia with Regina Rivers' show and also with Sandy Sedgbeer on her No BS Spiritual Book Club show. And also he's appeared on my show with Adventures in Consciousness, The Conversation. He also has, check out his website, his information. I believe it's in the chat there. There's a lot of wealth of information and he's looking for the people to come and ask him the questions, I think, to search his library.
Otherwise, I'm just going to be sleeping during the day. Just, I love the interaction.
I think we have a few more people here. I know Olivia wanted to jump in here. And I think I have everyone who wanted to open up their camera. Okay. All righty. Sheila says, thanks for reminding us it can be easy. Jennifer,
Good.
Wonderful. Thank you for a wonderful evening. Please help me turn on my video. You're on. Oh, I see Olivia. There she is. Okay. Before we have the blessing, next week we have an amazing person, Kimberly Clark Sharp. She is head of the Seattle Near-Death Association. She had a near-death, and we've had her on before, but this next week she's going to be talking about pets and information from the other side, or communication with pets from the other side. Doesn't matter whether it's a bird or pet or a rabbit or whatever. So same time, Thursday, 8 o'clock Eastern, always the same link. So with that, Stephen, I turn it over to you. So much thanks. So much thanks.
Thank you. And I feel the same way. Again, I want to thank you and Bob and Jennifer and everybody who came to share. And Jennifer set the intent that we are all brothers and sisters in here. So with the holding of the hands and being together, talking about what Jennifer began, we're all on this journey together. And in that vein, I'm requesting that the highest and best manifest for everyone, not only here, but wherever this reaches and the ripples continue, that the highest and best manifest for each of you on your continuing journey to an appointment with your own highest self. And thank you with love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Join us next week, September 23, when our conversationalist will be Kimberly Clark Sharp, sharing about animals in the afterlife. See you then.